Hello, U.S. history students, and welcome to the second of three lessons this week. This one is going to be on the Vietnam War Part 1. This is a two-part lesson on Vietnam. We're going to do Part 1 today. Now, as we go through this, be sure you're taking your own notes. Again, you might want to use the worksheet that I've uploaded to Canvas to help you keep track of the information. And just to review where we are, we're in the Cold War. It is us versus the Soviet Union. We're the two superpowers. Tension, hostility exists between us and the Soviet Union, but it's a Cold War. There is no actual fighting between the two groups, okay? We do not actively engage the Soviets. Now, we're going to fight communist forces that are backed by the Soviets, but we don't actually physically fight any Soviet forces during the Cold War. Now, as we go through this presentation, like I said, be sure you're taking your own notes. There will be a little quiz on this stuff at the end, so be sure you review all the material before you get ready for that quiz. It is not open notes. So where we left off in the last lesson, we were talking about Kennedy's presidency. Kennedy deals with Cuba. He gets elected in 1960. He deals with the Bay of Pigs crisis in 61. He deals with the Cuban Missile Crisis in 62. He's got to deal with the Berlin Wall and Nikita Khrushchev there, Khrushchev being the new leader of the Soviet Union. And then sadly, in November 1963, he gets assassinated in Dallas. When Kennedy is assassinated, his vice president, Lyndon Johnson, becomes president. Okay? So that's where we are in our presidential progression. Okay? We had FDR, Truman, Eisenhower, Kennedy, and now Lyndon Johnson. Johnson is going to escalate our presence in Vietnam, which is what this lesson is about. Now, before we get to that, you got to realize something, that during the 1950s and the early 1960s, the communist Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese Army, who was also communist, had begun attempts to install through force a communist government in all of Vietnam, and that includes South Vietnam. So it's a situation kind of like Korea. There's a dividing line. North Vietnam is communist, kind of like North Korea was communist. South Vietnam is democratic and capitalist. Okay? North Vietnam wants to install communism in South Vietnam. You have the NVA, the North Vietnamese Army, and the Viet Cong. Okay? Both of them are communist. Now, France had originally, Vietnam had been a colony of France. France had kind of been the main power fighting the communists for a long time. Then France backs out of Vietnam and we kind of take over. And during Eisenhower's administration and during Kennedy's administration, we begin to pay attention to Vietnam. And both Eisenhower and Kennedy are going to send aid to the South Vietnamese who are fighting against communism. Again, we're upholding containment, we're upholding the Truman Doctrine. But it is not going to be until 1965 and President Johnson that we actually begin sending in ground troops. Okay, we begin sending in U.S. troops to fight the communists. Okay, again, why are we doing this? We're upholding containment. Our involvement is going to reflect our policy of containment. We don't want to see communism spread. We want to see it stay in the North. We don't want it to come down in the South. So we're upholding containment and the Truman Doctrine. By the end of 1965, involvement in Vietnam was controversial with the American public. But Johnson continued to send in more troops, and we send over 180,000 troops to Vietnam. By 1970, that number is up to 500,000. Okay? So you can see our escalation. We are very, very much concerned about stopping the spread of communism. Now, we're going to talk about why it becomes controversial here in just a few minutes and really with the next presentation as well. But one thing I want you guys to know is when we face the Viet Cong and we face the NVA face to face, head to head, we win. Okay? But the Viet Cong, especially the Viet Cong and the NVA, are going to use guerrilla tactics. And when they use guerrilla tactics, that's when it becomes difficult for us to gain ground in Vietnam. Okay? And those attacks are going to be broadcast on the news and things like that. And that's what's going to turn people's opinion of Vietnam against it, okay, and against our involvement. All right? The U.S. believed that its superior weaponry would lead to a quick victory. However, as the conflict grew larger, the U.S. military forces repeatedly defeated the North Vietnamese in the field, but they could not force an end to the war because the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong, like I said, were using guerrilla tactics and they moved underground. Okay, the Viet Cong use hit and run ambush tactics in fighting. They strike quickly in small groups and then they disappear. Okay, and they use the jungles and they use underground tunnels to do so. That's why we can't get a good hold in Vietnam. Okay, is because of these tactics, and because these are being successful, the Viet Cong refuse to surrender. Okay, they suffer a lot of casualties in the field, but they continue to fight on. Okay, so this is why things are turning against us in Vietnam. We can't get a good hold on a victory. The Viet Cong refuse to surrender, and to top it all off, we can't win the support of the Vietnamese peasants. Okay, the people that we're supposed to be helping in the first place, they don't want us there. Okay, the South Vietnamese, they don't want to be communists, but they want to take care of the problem themselves. Okay, they're worried that we're going to get there and we're going to take over. So we can't gain the support of the people that were being there, that were there to help in the first place. Okay, because we can't determine who the enemy is. And here's a good picture right here. This little lady right here. We end up hurting innocent civilians in the process. And I point out to this lady right here and what she's carrying. Okay, she could be a regular peasant that's carrying. That could be a water jug. That could be a bag of vegetables or whatever. She could be carrying something as simple as that. Or she could be in the Viet Cong, and what she's carrying is a bomb, and she's going to get ready to drop it off when she gets close to this guy. Okay, or maybe she's going to pretend to be hurt or something and get some more soldiers around her before she detonates it or something like that. So the whole point is we can't tell who the enemy is, and as a result, we end up hurting some innocent civilians, and that's not going to bode well for us. Now, we've got two new weapons that we use in Vietnam. One is napalm, okay? Napalm is a gasoline-based bomb that sets fire to the jungle, okay? We're trying to flush out the Viet Cong, expose some of those trails, expose some of the jungles and stuff like that, or eradicate the jungle so that the Viet Cong don't have a place to hide in. That's why we're using napalm. It is a jelly-like substance. We also have something called Agent Orange. Agent Orange is a chemical that kills leaves. Okay, it also burns. If it gets in contact with your skin, it can burn. All right, and we spray that over the landscape again to destroy the foliage, to destroy the leaves, so we can gain a better hold. Where are these Viet Cong rushing to? Where are they hiding? So we can flush them out. Okay. Johnson is going to continue to increase the number of troops. Okay, in Vietnam. As we increase the number of troops, the cost of the war increases, both in terms of money and in terms of lives lost. Okay? As the numbers start to go up, many Americans initially support the war, but then we begin to see these numbers come in terms of dollars and lives. We begin to see images on television, okay? And public support, public opinion begins to change against the war, all right? We talked about media in World War II. We didn't have television as a media back then, okay? Now we do in Vietnam. And news crews are actually going to Vietnam to cover the war. And when these images of the war get broadcast back home and it doesn't look like we're winning and we're not gaining the support and Americans see us hurting innocent civilians and things like that, it doesn't take us long for opinions to turn against the war. The Johnson administration maintains that the war is going well. Okay. And again, I would say it is. When we face the North Vietnamese army and we face the Viet Cong head to head, we win. Okay. But we can't force them to surrender and they keep coming back. And stories like that, even though the Johnson administration, I think for the most part, is telling the truth, stories like that tell an opposite tale, okay? Or pictures, the TV, newspaper, okay? That sort of thing seems to be going against what Johnson is saying. Every night, Americans watched the brutal scenes of the war from that day on their TV screens. So you have the president saying everything's going well, and then you watch the TV at night, and all this chaos is happening, and people begin to say it can't be going well for us. Okay, we must be getting lied to. And the end result is a growing number of people no longer believe what the president is saying about Vietnam and no longer believe that we need to be there. And that's where we're going to pick up as we move to lesson 2. Okay. So be sure you go back through this information, study the worksheet, study your own notes before you get ready to take the little quiz on this, and then get the quiz out of the way.